Hello everyone, I'm Cam from Fairaccord, and welcome to the first school-specific decathlon guide. Quick disclaimer here, KI recently put out a tweet urging players to vote for a school to be this month's event. Personally, I think this is a terrible idea and would much prefer the schedule they've always had. But that is out of my control. If they continue to do this, please go and vote for the scheduled school's event so we can prepare. This being said, the Ice Deckathalon may not actually end up being the next one. If not, I'll try my best to rush out a guide for whichever one it is, and you can save this video to watch later when the ice one eventually comes back. Check this website linked in the description every few days to see which event is up next. Before I get into the guide, this video assumes you already know a lot about the event. So if you're newer and haven't watched my general decathlon guide, be sure to check that video out first. Okay, starting off, let's discuss the best treasure cards to carry. This is the list of non-vendor TC that are better than the vendor ones. If the event has already started when you're watching this, there's almost no shot you'll see any of these in the bazaar. But if it hasn't yet, try your best to grab these. Generally speaking, stock up on what you need depending on what your goal is for the event. If you want to farm stages 1 through 4 or 5, for example, then look into buying a lot of spells rank 5 and below. But if you're trying to beat Grey Rose at the top, you should only buy a couple of low pip spells and a bunch of spells like Ifrit and Sun Serpent. Let's break these down. Starting with the harder to get ones. With the exception of maybe Ashen Bones, anything from this blue section would be very helpful. Check the bazaar for them anytime you have a chance. From the red section, Fire Gut and Magma Colossus could help if you need to defend yourself while attacking, but these spells are valuable and you may not want to use them up. In the easier to get sections, we have what I think are some of the most helpful spells, Fire Serpent and Flame Snake. Either are fine. They do more than Fire Cat and are really good to use as tower shield breakers. You could also use Fire Beetle to get rid of shields, and it puts up 3 traps. The only problem is it takes an extra pip. Immolate is a controversial one, but last time this event came around I actually used it a lot. The self-damage almost always triggers a pet Maycast heal, and you can reduce the damage if you use thermic shields. The damage per pip is crazy, so I personally will be using these, but they are risky. I use a lot of Mander and Croco Mummy when farming lower stages, so stock up on those for sure. As far as the top stages go, you can't get much better than Ifrit, Rain of Fire, and Sun Serpent. I know Rain of Fire is a damage over time spell, but if you use mostly blades to buff it, it'll do a ton. Scald just doesn't do enough damage to kill on any higher floor. And while Meteor Strike does less, it does the damage all at once. Heckhound will do the most damage if you have a lot of pips, and if you want to try a dot strategy, these could help. The possible minions for this decathlon include the Fire Elemental from the Zafaria Library vendor. This one isn't the best, but it's by far the easiest to obtain. There's also Cole's Shadow Song from the Hand of Doom pack, or the Bazaar if you're lucky. Fire Brandon from farming Neborix. Sinbad from the Sinbad pack, or farming the Sinbad Gauntlet. And finally, Kamek Brule from the Road Warriors pack. I don't think there's any reason to buy packs for these, but if you have free time this month, I'd highly recommend Brandon farming. Now that you have your hits, let's discuss the ice enemies and what you will need to watch out for. Starting at stage 3, the enemies start to tower shield. There's multiple ways to combat this. First, you could pack some Pierce TC, although sometimes you may not have the deck space to fit those. Second, you could choose to set up your deck in a way that overkills the enemies with multiple hits or damage over time. Thus, a shield wouldn't mess up your strategy. Third, you could calculate your damage based on the shield being there, and add more and more buffs to account for it. Fourth, you could just rely on your Willcast pet to take off the shields, but that may not always be the best idea since they shield a lot. Lastly, you could use Fire Elf to break them off for a few turns while you build up pips. The next challenge is Frostbite, first seen on stage 4. If you have a decently high level deck, the most obvious solution would be to let the flat resist take care of it and change nothing about your strategy, except maybe adding more shields. You'll just have to shield every turn for a while if they have a bunch of pips. 2 cards you could pack that would help deal with it are Triage and Fortify. Triage are more rare to obtain, and you may not want to waste them on this tower. Honestly, I'd save them for the Fire Decathalon, but it's a good way to reduce the damage you take from it if you want. Fortify helps you survive the damage, but the higher you go, the higher the pierce they have, and at some point they pierce all the way through it, and it has no effect. On stage 5, they start using Steel Ward. This really isn't a problem if you're using minus 85% shields, as it would just have the same effect as them using a 2-pip hit on you that does 0 damage, and you're not hitting them with ice spells. I would not recommend packing Steel Wards yourself to steal them back, but just make sure you do not put any thermic shields or tower shields in your deck. If you let them steal those, that would ruin your strategy. On stage 7, they cast Angry Snow Pig. This could be a problem if you're on floor 2, because if you shield twice, then it'll steal one of them and then the next enemy has an open hit on you. Although, the steal is after the hit, so a good way to get around this would be to pack Glacial Shield as your main shield instead of Ice Shield. Yes, you'll lose that 10% extra, but the Snow Pigs won't be a problem at all. A wonderful thing that ice enemies love to do is stun. Stage 8 they begin to use Freeze, and stage 9 Frost Giant. While you could pack Stun Block TC, you'd probably never have the chance to use it, and as soon as you're stunned once, you get a free stun block. Personally, I just hope to get good RNG. Just plan your battle out and take less risks, so a stun wouldn't kill you. Always have shields up, and always try to have a decent amount of health. The last troublesome spell is Frozen Armor on stage 10. This has the same solutions as Tower Shield. Bring some Pierce if you'd like, or just pack enough hits and buffs to compensate for the extra damage you need to do. Also, side note, Vampire's damage will go straight through the Absorb because it's a drain. Pets. Ice enemies in the Decathalon Tower have a lot of resist to ice, and I think a bunch are immune towards the top. This being said, the regular Frozen Kraken wouldn't be the best for this month. However, it still can help with shield breaking. Here's my suggestion. If you have no Willcast pet at all and you think you want to make one, still make a Frozen Kraken pet, because it'll help so much in the other 6 Decathalons. If you already have a different Willcast like Vampire, Leaf Storm, Earthwalker, etc., then use those. If you already have a Frozen Kraken pet and have the resources to make another, I would go for Vampire or Leaf Storm. Leaf Storm takes less tokens to unlock, and will help much more than Vampire in the next Decathalon, Death. Vampire does more damage to a single target, and gives you a little bit of heal back. Finally, let's discuss deck setups. I will go through with you in depth how to use the spreadsheet to make a deck, and then I'll just briefly show some other deck setups. For our example, let's say I have Ice Deck 2, and I'm trying to complete stages 1 through 3. My pet Rufus here has Willcast Vampire, so I'll be using that in my calculations. Deck 2 gives 6% fire damage, so I'll be using this column to see how much damage I need to do. Okay, so Harvest Lord takes out the first floor first turn. For floor 2, I can use this again to take out one of them, then use Vampire for the other one. Since Vampire isn't fire, I have to look at the total health rather than the effective health. Hopefully I won't take too much damage passing for 2 turns, and the healing I will get back will be enough. Harvest Lord also takes out the boss, just barely. For stage 2, Sunbird will take out the first guy since the effective health is lower than the low end, 345. The next floor, Meteor takes them both out. Easy. Sunbird won't take out the boss 100%, so I'm going to use a Croco Mummy for him. On stage 3, they start tower shielding, so I'm going to make sure to accommodate for that. Croco Mummy almost takes out the first guy, but not quite, so I'm just going to use a Vampire after that, which will kill through a shield. He technically could shield twice, so I'll throw in a Flame Snake just in case. Floor 2 here, I'll use another Meteor, which doesn't do enough, but with Flame Snakes, it will kill. Technically, a Fire-Bladed Meteor would kill both, but with shields, I don't really want to take the risk. Either way is fine. For the final boss, I'll pack an Immolate, which does more than enough, and I'll make sure to pair it with a Thermic Shield. For the rest, I'll put in Snow Shields and 1 Fairy. This is looking good. But before you go in, play it out in your head to make sure you have enough shields. 6 isn't a ton, but if I don't shield on stage 1 or the first floor of 2, I could use 2 shields for double battles and 1 shield for single battles. Let's see. 2 for 2.2, 1 for 2.3, 1 for 3.4, 2 for 3.2, and then this one for 3.3. I should be good. My pet should be healing throughout this time, and I have a backup heal. And just like that, we are ready to go. Now, if you happen to have rarer treasure cards like Fire Shark, you could adjust a couple of things to give yourself a leg up, but it really won't be necessary. Without going in depth, for stages 6 and 7, your deck could look something like this, and for stage 10, my deck will probably be this. Filled with minimal hits, buffs, heals, minions, and a ton of shields. Again, using mostly glacial shields because of the snow pigs. And that will do it for the Ice Deckathalon guide. I hope this was helpful. Make sure to leave a comment below if you have any further questions, or join the Discord in the description, and I'm available there all the time for help. Check out the general Decathlon guide if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time for the Death Decathlon. Thanks for watching.